Hello, thank you for tuning into my channel today. We're continuing to learn about free motion quilting, so if you want to know how to use free motion quilting to create a rainbow arc design like this, please stay tuned. This is the bow tie quilt that I've been working on for a while, and my last video I showed you all about free motion quilting in the ditch, and so I've already free motion quilted all of this in the ditch, so I'm just kind of tracing the line around to show how I did that, and I did that for the whole quilt. And then I've also stitched in the ditch around this border, and then I used the same thing. Actually, I used my walking foot to quilt this line and then this other line around this border. So my next step is going to be to start free motion quilting each of these bow tie patterns, and I'm actually going to be quilting the pattern of the bow tie itself and the background. You can see that I've already started that, and so just to get some ideas so I knew what I was going to put on camera. So I'm going to start here today with the rainbow arc design. For this particular fabric line, there are a variety of different patterns. There are probably about 6 or 7 different patterns of fabric, and each of those is in a different color scheme. So what I've decided to do is let, for the inside of the bow tie, anything that has this big flower pattern will get a particular design in the bow tie itself. And then this plaid right here, it's going to get the rainbow arc design in the background. So that makes it easier for me to kind of stay organized. I want to show you first what these designs look like on paper, and then I'll show you what they look like on the machine. Let's get started. What I've done to hopefully make it easier to see this design is that I've created like a template of what the bow tie is going to look like that kind of shows you the boundaries that we have to work with for both the bow tie and the background. So I'm going to show you what it looks like on each of these backgrounds. The rainbow arcs basically is just what it says. So it's going to be gentle curves coming from the corner and going from this corner going to this corner. So what I've done is you just make a gentle curve here, and then you'll stitch in the ditch and then go around, then you'll travel to the next little part, go around, and then travel, and here I would just travel along the stitch line again and then go into my curve again, traveling along the stitch line, going into a curve. And at this point, I'll start making the curves in the opposite direction. So there, and then traveling, and there, and that one, hopefully those will be a little bit further apart. Here, curves, and they probably won't be perfect. Mine aren't perfect as I change direction even when I'm writing. So the same thing will happen when I sew. One side is going to be a little bit neater than the other one, but in this case it won't matter because this is emphasis fabric. So this fabric already has a lot of pattern in it, so it won't be as much of an issue. Now when we look at it from the background, the procedure is basically the same, except we're going to be working in these smaller areas. So let me show you what that looks like. You start at the seam line, curve around, and in the background these are going to be closer together. Okay. And you can see that here. And even though this is, I'm not going all the way to the edge of the paper, my straight lines should be the seaming lines. Okay. And then when you get up toward the corner, you can either try to fit a curve in there, or you can just travel a little bit along the seam line right, and then travel, and then so you would stop here. And then on this side it's pretty much the same thing. Sometimes I have left my thread and just kind of let my thread go across there, and I'll cut that later. And then just start here at the top, travel, around, travel, and so on. You can see that the pattern pretty much stays the same. Okay, and if you see, like, I needed a little bit more curve, and so I just added it in there. Okay, so this is what they look like on paper. So let's see what they look like on the machine. A quick reminder of my setup. I have my Singer CE 100 Futura, and the only thing that's changed or added is my embroidery foot. I'm free motion quilting with my embroidery foot. I'm using an off-white thread in the top and a gray thread in the bottom. And I have my Fons and Porter quilting gloves. I'm going to go ahead and slide the quilt under the needle to get ready for quilting. And then we'll get started. I feel like I do need to say that the reason I've chosen this method, where I'm trying to quilt a lot so I can practice my free motion quilting, but also I'm going to quilt these large sections pretty lightly, so there'll be a lot of space in between the rows of stitches, so hopefully those will pop out of the quilt. And then I'm quilting the background a little more densely so that hopefully it will push the background more toward the background, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start with just some locking stitches, so up and down in the same spot. And then I'm just going to start quilting my arc. So I'm going to start quilting a pretty big arc. And remember, in free motion quilting, I control my the thread and the fabric. My needle, there we go. My presser foot was acting weird. Okay, and then I'm going to travel using the stitching line. Okay, and so it looks like I'm going about maybe an inch down, maybe a little bit more. And then I'll start my next arc. And it's not, I don't know, it's not so precise, but it's good enough, I think. And I just kind of used the previous line as a guide. All right, and then travel a little more. About an inch to an inch and a quarter. Drop that needle just to move my hands and maintain my placement in the fabric. And then this arc is going to be bigger because it has to cover a larger area, of course. And that. You can stop at any time to change your position. I'm just kind of moving my hands a little bit. But it's just kind of maintaining a big curve with the stitches. And it's pretty much the same motion. Arc and then travel, arc and then travel the whole time. And then from here, again, traveling. And for this one, the arc is going to be a little bit smaller, but I just have to adjust the way I'm traveling. I travel down and around the corner. Now I'll go ahead and head it back into the bow tie. Stop the needle so I can prepare for my fabric. And this one is, for me, it's a little bit harder because I'm trying to pull the fabric towards me. So I just kind of have to, I'm kind of going by blind faith and really looking at the line of the arc before to try and gauge where I am and how far to curve. And in this case, it doesn't have to go all the way down there. And then I'm going to travel in and then do another smaller one, because now I'm in the center of the bow tie. And since I'm not quilting as densely in the inside the pattern fabric, then they don't really take that long. This pattern itself is a little bit tedious with these long curves, but I hope that it's teaching me some control with my stitches. And of course, I'm always working on my stitch length and working on how fast my hands are moving and how fast my feet are moving with the presser foot or with the needle. And also practicing changing directions with the fabric and so on. All right, at this point, since I'm in the middle of the bow tie, I'm going to start turning my curves the opposite way. So instead of kind of going in, so here is the current block that I just finished. You can see, if we zoom in really close, you can see the stitches. So they've started over here in this corner and they just go up. And then when they get in the middle, they go the other way. So let's see what that looks like on a smaller section of fabric of the quilt. So I have my machine set up to stitch this little section here. And I'm just going to start stitching from the outside and going in. This is cool because I get to practice in a very small area. Gentle curve and then along the seam line. Since these are since this is a smaller area, then of course I want my quilting to be closer together, to be a little denser. I'm just moving the needle, moving the fabric so that the needle goes back and forth to create my curves, and drop the feed dogs while I change my hands along the stitch line, and the next one. And then along the seam line again. And so basically all I'm doing is echoing the previous stitch line or the previous curve. So and here we go, coming back the other way. So now you can see the 4 rows of stitching, and so I'm going to probably actually definitely I'm going to speed the video up until I get to this section. So I want you to see how I come around the curves or around the stitch lines. Okay, so at this point, I think I have about 2 more rows of stitching to go. So what I'm going to do is I'll do this first row. And this is a pretty significant curve, but again, I'm just kind of echoing the line of the previous curve until I get to the other side. And so to get around to the next, for the last row, I'm actually going to stitch quite a bit around in the ditch here. And then when I find the spot that I think it would naturally come out of, then I'll kind of go into the block. So here it goes. And I get pretty close to the stitch line, and that's okay. Alright, and typically to end the stitches, I'll do a lock stitch, or actually, I'll just kind of do just kind of a back and forth in that one area to lock it in. And then when I cut it, when I cut the thread, I'm going to leave probably about 2 to 3 inches so that I can hide the threads later. Okay. So here is both sides of this stitching. I'm going to make sure you can see it on camera. Chair. Zoom out just a bit. I placed this up on my sewing machine so you can see exactly how the stitches look. They kind of radiate from the outside of the block and go in, so you can see that rainbow arc in this smaller space. Thank you so much for watching the video about rainbow arc quilting on this bow tie quilt. I hope you'll keep tuning in so that we can learn more free motion quilting patterns together. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!